Good morning, everybody. Sorry we're a little late. Uh, Lyric isn't feeling well, so we will be with her, Lord willing, tomorrow. Um, we got the prodigal son back, big ant in the building. So, again, I'm traveling, so Big Ant's gonna do the reading, uh, and we'll take it from there. Turn you over to Big Ant.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, my G. How you feeling? Feeling good?
I'm feeling good. Just hear an echo.
That's probably on me. Let me come out, come back in.
And while we wait, let's see how it goes.
Can you hear me?
But
Can
I
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
Do I still have an echo?
No, you're fine
Oh,
now.
all right. So I'm gonna mute. Let you read.
Uh-oh. Well, maybe that's me. Give me 1 second. I think.
Okay, so I'll talk for a second. So, guys, we have um we have made it up to Job. Um, Today we're gonna be reading Job 15 through 19. We need to pay attention because Job is revealing uh, a side of suffering that seldomly we get to see, and a side of understanding I'm sorry for the audio. I'm driving. Um, there's many things that we need to pay attention to, and Lyric's been doing an awesome job of taking us through it step by step, So, Lord willing, she'll be back with us tomorrow to continue us down that road. However, we need to understand that, again, we need to put down what we've been taught from the Western side of this world, right? Because we've been taught to understand this book through the creature's eye, which is man, not through our husband's eye, which is God. That's what it's all about, God. You understand?
I think so. I think we got it
All
corrected.
right. All right. I'm on mute.
Yeah, it sounds much better now. Well, good morning again, everybody. Uh, yes, I have returned. Uh, it was good to have some time off. It was also crazy. You find out how much your life is built around things in regards to internet connections. So mine was very low and limited. So, but even with that being said, it was a good time away, and it's been a good time, as much as possible, being able to listen in and hear the readings in the morning. Couldn't always respond. Half the time I barely responded, um, just because when they was able to connect up, I was able to connect up. Um, Most of the time, it was a little bit later on in the day. So, but with that being turned, it is crazy. As Larry likes to say, it was crazy, but also amazing. We are now in Job, the book of the man of suffering. And so, knowing that and understanding it, we get to see how things worked out for old Job doing the readings here we've been having in the morning. And it's really one of those things that you don't understand until you read the book of Job, just uh, how much he had to go through, and also his thought pattern behind it. Right. So today we'll be starting in uh, chapter 14.
Hold on, Lyric in the building. I thought the Lord brought her back earlier than possible.
Sh- She was healed.
Yeah. Miss Lyric,
Mm-hmm. I'm
How
here.
you doing?
how you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you, Anthony.
I
Now,
appreciate it.
So we're not in 14. We're in 15.
It's 15?
I'm sorry,
All right.
15 through 19. I'm sorry, 15 through 19.
Hey guys.
Wow, wow, wow. Glad you're feeling good. Well, feeling better. But your voice.
Well, as they say on the,
So we'll just read. And if your voice is up to it, Lyric, you can come in after we finish reading. I'm trying to make it to my destination quickly so I can probably read the second half. But if I can't, again, it's on you. 15 through 19. I'm going on mute.
all right.
Well,
So,
Anthony, do you want to read all of it, or do you need somebody to read the second half?
no, no, I'm fine. I can actually read all of it.
Okay.
Give you, give your voice a rest. You've been reading quite a while. And let's see, chapter 15, and it goes as follows. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, should a wise man answer with empty knowledge, and fill himself with the east wind? Should he reason with unprofitable talk, or by speeches which he can do no good? Yes, you can cast off fear and restrain prayer before God, for your iniquity teaches your mouth. You can choose the tongue of the crafty. Your own mouth condemns you, and not I. Yes, your own lips testify against you. Are you the first man who was born, or were you made before the hills? Have you heard the counsel of God? Do you limit wisdom to yourself? What do you know that we do not know? What do you understand that is not in us? Both the gray haired and the aged are among us, much older than your father. And the consolations of God too small are the consolations of God too small for you, and the word spoken gently with you. Why does your heart carry you away? And what do your eyes wink at? That you turn your spirit against God, and let such words go out of your mouth. What is man that he could be pure, and he who was born of woman that he could be righteous? If God puts no trust in his saints, and the heavens are not pure in his sight, how much less man who is abominable and filthy, who drinks iniquity like water? I will tell you, hear me. What I have seen I will declare, what wise men have told, not hiding anything received from their fathers, to whom alone the land was given, and no alien passed among them. The wicked man writhed with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden from the oppressor. Dreadful sounds are in his ears, and prosperity the destroyer comes upon him. He does not believe that he will return from darkness, for a sword is waiting for him. He wanders about for bread, saying, where is it? He knows that a day of darkness is ready at his hand. Trouble and anguish make him afraid. They overpower him like a king ready for battle. For he stretches out his hand against God and acts defiantly against the Almighty, running stubbornly against him with his strong and embossed shield, though he has covered his face with his fatness and made his waist heavy with fat. He dwells in desolate cities and in houses which no one inhabits, which are destined to become ruins. He will not be rich, nor will his wealth continue, nor will his possessions overspread the earth. He will depart from darkness. The flame will dry out his branches, and by the breath of his mouth he will go away. Let him not trust in futile things, deceiving himself, for futility will be his reward. It will be accomplished before his time, and his branch will not be green. He will shake off his unripe grapes like a vine, and cast off his blossom like an olive tree. For the company of hypocrites will be barren, and fire will consume the tents of robbery. They conceive trouble and bring forth futility. Their womb prepares deceit. Chapter 16. Then Job answered and said, I have heard many such things. Miserable comforters are you all. Shall words of wind have an end? Or what provokes you that you answer? I also could speak as you do. If your souls were in my soul's place, I could heap up words against you and shake my head at you. But I will strengthen you with my mouth, and the comfort of my lips would relieve your grief. Though I speak, my grief is not relieved, and if I remain silent, how am I eased? But now he has worn me out. You have made desolate all my company. You have shriveled me up, and it is a witness against me. My leanness rises up against me and bears witness to my face. He tears me in his wrath and hates me. He gnashes at me with his teeth. My adversary sharpens his gaze on me. They gape at me with their mouths. They strike me reproachfully on the cheek. They gather together against me. God has delivered me to the ungodly and turned me over to the hands of the wicked. I was at ease, but he has shattered me. He also has taken me by my neck and shaken me to pieces. He has set me up for his target. His archers surround me. He pierces my heart and does not pity. He pours out my gall on the ground. He breaks me with wound upon wound. He runs at me like a warrior. I have sewn sackcloth over my skin and laid my head in the dust, and my face is flushed with weeping, and on my eyelids is the shadow of death, although no violence is in my hand, and my prayer is pure. O earth, do not cover my blood, and let my cry have no resting place. Surely even now my witness is in heaven, and my evidence is on high. My friends scorn me, my eyes pour out tears to God. Oh, that one might plead for a man with God, as a man pleads for his neighbor. For when a few years are finished, I shall go the way of no return. My spirit is, chapter 17. My spirit is broken, my days are extinguished. See, the grave is ready for me. Are not mockers with me? And does not my eye dwell on their provocation? Now put down a pledge for me with yourself. Who is he who will shake hands with me? For you have hidden their heart from understanding. Therefore you will not exalt them. He who speaks flattery to his friends, even the eyes of his children will fail. But he has made me a byword of the people, and I have become one in whose face men spit. My eye has also grown dim because of sorrow, and all my members are like shadows. Upright men are astonished at this, and the innocent stirs himself up against the hypocrite. Yet the righteous will hold to his way, and he who has clean hands will be stronger and stronger. But please come back again, all of you, for I shall not find one wise man among you. My days are past, my purpose are broken off, even the thoughts of my heart. They change the night into day. The light is near, they say, in the face of darkness. If I wait for the grave as my house, if I make my bed in the darkness, if I say to corruption, you are my father, and to the worm, you are my mother and my sister, where then is my hope? As for my hope, who can see it? Will they go down to the gates of Sheol? Shall we have rest together in the dust? Chapter 18. Then Bildad the Shuhite answered and said, how long till you put an end to words? Gain understanding, and afterward we will speak. Why are we counted as beasts and regarded as stupid in your sight? You who tear yourself in anger, should the earth be forsaken for you? Or should a rock be removed from its place? The light of the wicked indeed goes out, and the flame of his fire does not shine. The light is dark in his tent, and his lamp beside him is put out. The steps of his strength are shortened, and his own counsel casts him down. For he is cast into a net by his own feet, and he walks into a snare. The net takes him by the heel, and the snare lays hold of him. A noose is hidden for him on the ground, and a trap for him in the road. Terror frightens him on every side and drives him to his feet. His strength is starved, and destruction is ready at his side. It devours patches of his skin. The firstborn of death devours his limbs. He is uprooted from the shelter of his tent, and they parade him before the king of terrors. They dwell in his tent who are none of his. Brimstone is scattered on his dwelling. His root are dried out below, and his branch withers above. The memory of him perishes from the earth, and he has no name among the renowned. He is driven from light into darkness and chased out of the world. He has neither son nor posterity among his people, nor any remaining in his dwelling. Those in the west are astonished at his day, and those in the east are frightened. Surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him who does not know God. Chapter 19. Then Job answered and said, how long will you torment my soul and break me in pieces with words? These 10 times you have reproached me. You are not ashamed that you have wronged me, and if indeed I have erred, my error remains with me. If indeed you exalt yourself against me and plead my disgrace against me, know then that God has wronged me, and has surrounded me with his net. If I cry out concerning wrong, I am not heard. If I cry aloud, there is no justice. He has fenced up my way so that I cannot pass, and he has set darkness in my path. He has stripped me of his glory, and taken the crown from my head, and he breaks me down on every side, and I am gone. My hope he has uprooted like a tree, and he has also kindled his wrath against me, and he counts me as one of his enemies. His troops come together and build up their road against me. They encamp all around my tent, and he has removed my brothers far from me, and my acquaintances are completely estranged from me. My relatives have failed, and my close friends have forgotten me. Those who dwell in my house and my maidservants count me as a stranger. I am an alien in their sight. I call my servant, but he gives no answer. I beg him with my mouth. My breath is offensive to my wife, and I am repulsive to the children of my own body. Even young children despise me. I arise and they speak against me. All my close friends abhor me, and those whom I love have turned against me. My bone, my bone clings to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. Have pity on me. Have pity on me, O you my friends, for the hand of God has struck me. Why do you persecute me as God does? And are you not satisfied with my flesh? Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book, that they would engrave on a rock with an iron pen and lay it forever. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at last on the earth. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold and not another. How my heart yearns within me. If you should say, how shall we persecute him? Since the root of the matter is found in me. Be afraid of the sword for yourselves, for wrath brings the punishment of the sword, that you may know there is a judgment. There we go. All right.
The word of the Lord, you guys. Thank you for reading, Anthony. Let me see. I think my volume is low. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can actually hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. We we've come a long way in Job, and we've gotten to we've gotten to a point um, in Job where a lot of people um, have taught and will speak about Job being in a conflict with himself, and that that he's in conflict with himself, um, that he's upset, and it is. And before I get into that, and before I speak about that, I would like to say that it is very, very hard for me to listen to the book of Job, to read the book of Job, and be where we're at in this part of Job, and an awakening inside of me not happen. Um, the words, the poetry, the song displayed here in this book, it's moving, and it moves something. It kindles a fire within you. And as we've journeyed through this book, and we are attempting to go deeper into the understanding of why we suffer, why we're going through the things we go through. Suffering is peculiar. We discover that suffering is peculiar. And over the last couple of reads that we have been talking about this, we see this, and we can identify in our own experience, as well as we're beginning to identify in Job's experience how peculiar suffering is. You know, how peculiar the experience can be. And I want to take you guys somewhere today. We're still talking about suffering, but I want to take you somewhere. But before I take you there, let me finish the point I started. So, it's been taught a lot that Job is conflicting, with himself. And when I first read Job, when I first was introduced to Job, I was like, yeah, he is in conflict with himself. But Job is going. He has one understanding of his mind, and he has a different understanding of his within his heart, and he's dealing with this. And in we're seeing him in discourse with his friends, while contemporaneously being in discourse with God. And we're seeing him talk about that, and we're seeing him deal with his heart and deal with his mind and speak about these things. And when he goes to God, he brings what he is feeling to God. Because just because we know God, it doesn't mean that we can't tell him, I don't feel good. I don't feel good today. And Job knew him and understood him enough to say, this don't make sense to me. We have been taught that when we're in public spaces and when we believe we are to act and we are to speak to God in one way, and we're only to go to him about certain things, about certain goodness, and maybe, yes, in private, you can go to him about other things, but still make sure you watch how you talk to him. And even Job's friends are looking at him like, I continue to say, they're looking at him like, dude, you have done something. Because up until this point, they understand righteousness as, if you are righteous and you are upright before God, righteous people don't suffer. Righteous people don't go through pain. And if you are righteous, we don't suffer. We don't go through pain. Good things happen to us. But yes, if you've done evil, then you deserve to be in pain. You deserve to be in pain. You deserve to go through things. Because you have done something wrong, you're no longer right. And whatever this thing is, then you must repent for it. And so
And you
we're Did you say
no,
something?
I was about to say, and you see how far that goes back. That goes back. You hear that even today, right? It's not that a testing of your faith is not happening, right? It's that same mindset. If something bad is happening to you, if you're going through a tragedy, if you're going through a situation, um, and you have been living uprightly, then it has to be you've done something. You've sinned. You've done something, right? That's why you're going through it, and not understanding that although sin, there's consequences for sin. That is 100% true. However, every tragedy that you're going through does not mean that you have sinned. And that is a hard truth for a lot of people to grasp. And we're seeing that with Job and
Right. But
and his friends to today.
I would also argue that, you know, towards Anae's question, what your response, you said he was confused on the why. Job got to a point, and we read even as you read today that I wouldn't say that he was confused on the why. I would say he was dealing with the why. He understood that God was not changing. He understood he knew. I think we miss out on how much Job knew God. How much he knew God, and he knew he started to see that there was a purpose to what God was doing. And he understood that in the end, I know you have to have something planned. I just haven't got there yet. Because all he understood was he was hurting. That he was in a lot of pain. Not only was he in a physical pain, but he was also in emotional pain, which led to a mental pain, which led to a soul binding pain. A soul binding pain. But yet, when he was defending God, when we see in chapter 13 and chapter 14, when he's standing in defense of God, chapter 12, chapter 14, when we see him defending God, he understands that you are almighty, your hand is ever changing. And there's a portion of Job that understood also that, I'm gonna make a point here, that pain was never supposed to be a part of the human experience. Think of it as it being a glitch in the matrix, because pain came about when Adam and Eve brought sin in. And because of this glitch, that suffering was introduced. And we see it in Genesis, the first 3 chapters of
Hmm.
Genesis. And so pain was never supposed to be a part of the human experience. It wasn't. And so we have all these scientists running around trying to decode aging, and trying to understand why the body begins to deteriorate at a certain age. And the answer is in the first 3 chapters of Genesis.
Right.
Anything that you want to know about anthropology, psychology, the human makeup, there's no book that you can read that'll give it to you more than those first 3 chapters. So I would argue that it wasn't about that. It wasn't about that why. It was about that, listen, God, I know you're going somewhere with this, because you are God. You are almighty. And we get to see him going through this frustrating prayer, this frustrating conversation with God, because every ounce of me is hurting. My spirit, my mind, my soul, my body, everything is hurting. And I talked about yesterday, there's examples that we should take from him. And the biggest example that we should take from him is honoring and knowing that he is just, he is what he says he is. He's going somewhere. He's going somewhere with it. But when we get to the point where we're in pain, we have a natural tendency to want to run from it and boil it down to this legalistic frame of thinking, and say to ourselves that if we're doing good, if we are righteous, that we should not be experiencing this. And that's because we have this worldly wisdom, this worldly knowledge of what righteousness is, because we feel like if we're right, and if we're just, and if we've been doing what God has told us to do, then this isn't for us, this isn't what we should be experiencing. But our definition of righteousness and the world's definition of righteousness is two different things. And people nowadays have the tendency to follow the world's definition of righteousness. And so that leads us to believe that pain is a consequence of injustice. And so if you feel any type of pain, or if you're going through any type of hurt or suffering, then you have done something wrong and you need to correct it so that you could be right with God. And until you get back right with God, then you're going to continue in your pain. And this is not, that's not what, uh, that's not what, you know, that's not the understanding that God intended for us to have as it relates to uh, pain.
No, no, it's not. And that's why I was commenting to Nate on the why, right? His deal was, if he knew he had done no wrong, to be punished like that. That didn't make sense to him either, right? So it's like you're saying, I agree with what you're saying as far as the pain that he's going through and everything else. His as humans, when we go through stuff, we always sit back for the most part, and we have a tendency to think that whatever it is our fault. Right. So we first look at the part where, we take it for whatever it is. But we always seem, you have the ones that will cast blame outward, and then you have the ones that take the introspective route and look to see inward to what has been done and what they have done. Right. He's done that. Right. And at no point in time, and this is one of the things that the whole passage takes. Um, from beginning to end. At no point in time is he blaming God for anything. He, like you said, he's saying God is righteous in all of his ways and just in all of the ways and all of the things that's going on. His big question is on that why is what's going on? Why is this happening? Right? I don't understand. Now his friends, on the other hand, are pretty much garbage because they're saying that it's the same thing. They're saying that, well, you sinned and you just don't want to admit it, and you're being self-righteous, and you just don't want to get down and say that, you screwed up, and that, this is all your fault, and all these things that happen for you because there's some sin that you don't want to confess and that you don't want to admit and everything else. And he's like, well, no, I haven't done anything. This is I don't know why this is happening. And like you said, I know God has a plan, but I don't know why this is happening. But I know that I'm in pain. I know that something is happening. I know that something's going on, and I don't have this answer. And that's really and truly a lot of what's tearing him up inside because he knows God, he knows the character of God and everything else. And in certain ways, this is not measuring up to his definition of what he believes that goes against the character of God, right? This is why I'm saying this is not what's adding up, and this is where the why portion come in, not a why of uh, maybe that there's something that I've done wrong as much as it is and he does well, and I'm not gonna go that route because that's part of the breeding going forward. But at this point in time, he knows in his mind, he knows that he has done nothing that would bring this type of quote unquote judgment on himself, right? And he even starts, and it's playing, with his mind, and he's getting into a quote unquote space where with his friends, continually running their mouth about everything that's going on. uh it's really for him, it's really disheartening. He's at a place where he's disheartened, and it's getting to the point where it's borderline in many ways. He's bordering if not into a depressive state.
Well, let me jump in a little bit in here. Um, when we're talking about Job was a different breed of guy, and that was the purpose of the reasoning of why God pointed him out to Satan. So I think that at times we misconstrue the tug of war that man has when they're explaining what they're going through as man in flesh, opposed to what man understands in spirit. Because when we read, right, and I jumped a little bit ahead, but when we read, Job never called God the Redeemer or a Redeemer. He called God my Redeemer. And and in
Correct.
and in saying that, you know, Job's faith and trust was never wavered. The same as we would say, as a Joseph. As man, there are certain things that we'll say, to what's going on in the moment. But Joseph never wavered when it came to God, never wavered on God. And when we're looking at Job, I think a lot of the times we misconstrue what man goes through in the flesh, opposed to the understanding and the relationship that man has in the spirit. And what I mean by that, in terms of the relationship, I don't think Job, when we read, Job never questions God. We haven't gotten to that point where Job, not to jump ahead, but we haven't gotten to that point where Job questions God, or is in any shape or form not in the understanding of God is not with him still. In fact, he screams on, you know, um, his peoples that are talking against him. In fact, when you get into 20, Zophar accuses the man. He's jealous of the man. When
You
you read
can't
that.
skip ahead, man. You can't skip ahead. Don't
Okay,
even
well,
talk about what's going on now.
things, um, when we're reading about Job, the difference between Job and everyone else is Job. He doesn't, in my eyes, you get the David, you get the Moses, and all these different guys that get the props, but Job don't get the props of these guys, because Job was on a different, his relationship with God was on a different level. So when we're reading, that Job is understanding that, and what the writer is giving us understanding is, you know, um, suffering is not always punishment. Suffering is not always punishment. And Job had that understanding. Emphatically, Job had that understanding. I don't think any of us can disagree that Job had that understanding that I ain't do nothing. And I know that this is the Lord doing something. Because as we read further, you'll see that Job understood that there was a plan. And this goes the same thing with Joseph. So I don't think that Job was wavering in the aspect of saying, this ain't the relationship I'm supposed to have with God, Big Ant. I don't think he had that feeling. You know,
Oh
it,
no,
it,
I'm
it,
not saying that I'm not saying that that was the case. What what
no,
I what I
but
was saying was that, and well, hold on a second before we go into that little discussion portion. I think we lost a video on the channel, the main one.
hold
It's
on.
like gone.
What about now?
a second. See if it's back.
I think it's back. It's back.
Yeah, it's back.
Right. So
But no, what I was saying, the part that I was saying was that
go ahead.
his whole thing was not that, like I said, it was never a point, especially in the readings we've done so far. Right now, there's some other things that come up later on, true, but in the readings that we've done so far, yeah, he's not questioning God in any of that regards, and he's not requesting his relationship with God. But when you think about when you think about what's happening to him, and that's kind of what I was saying. It's his mindset, and you can kind of tell it through the reading. The mindset is why, and that mindset is like, and that why is not like, why is this happening to me per se, as much as like, what's going on, right? He's trying to find it. He's looking for the answer, because everything is not adding up for him. At this point in time, it's not that he doesn't believe God is not righteous. It's not that he doesn't believe that God is not just, or any of that. Because like you say it, in lyrics spoke so eloquently about it as well, is that he is literally defending God to his quote unquote friends. He's defending God, he's defending the character of God, the whole nine. His whole deal is basically, for him, is what's going on. Is
No, no,
and it
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, when okay, I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
When we go through what we go through, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, there's in your spirit, yeah, I'm going through this for this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And and your flesh will fight. You'll tap into your flesh a little bit and be like, yo, come on, man. But then when when your flesh has gone through its cycle, and your spirit taps back, and you'll be like, man, listen, I understand why I'm going through what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're having this being pushed in the forefront. And the reason why I'm saying that is, again, Job is defending. Now we have to understand that we're man,
Mm-hmm.
right? Christ grieved, Christ mourned. So Job going through his mourning and grieving at this point, that's what man does.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. But we have to understand the difference between when the spirit kicks in and when the flesh is there, because we all go through that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I'm giving you a little pushback on it is to say that Job understood. That's what, again, I don't want to jump ahead. Job's relationship with God was different than any other man's relationship. And there's certain people in the Bible that Job had this relationship with, and Lyric and I were talking about this yesterday. His relationship with Job was different. It was different, right? And this is the reason why he was able to brag. That's basically what God was doing. I was like, have you seen my dude, Job? Now
Mm-hmm.
there's no way God is going to put Job in that positioning if he didn't know that the relationship that those two had was fortified,
Mm-hmm.
like the rock of Gibraltar. So even in his mourning, and even in his grieving, let me say that, grieving, I think we have to put into context the type of grieving that he's going through, if that makes sense. Even in his grieving, the context of the grieving in which he's going through is not the grieving in the aspect of, I don't know which way God has taken me. Because when you look at those types of dudes, they didn't care which way God took them. They knew that God had them. And that's the trust that certain men and certain women had with God. They didn't worry about which way they were going. They just knew that we had to deal with what we're dealing with right now, and to get me through whatever I need to get through, because I know that the bigger picture, God has me. If that,
And I would agree with you on that.
you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
I
but
think
think
the
about it this way. Just to your analogy, and what you're saying, just to the words that you're saying right now, and this is one of these, you know, the philosophical discussion of the theological, right? But think about what you just said for a few seconds. And I know we're probably taking this on a tangent. It's too early in the morning to take, at least for those where it's still dark outside. But based on what you're saying, it still adds up, right? The grieving. Think of going to all of the stuff that you're saying, because
Right.
remember, you will see you. It even said in the passages, right? It said in all these things, even in all of these things, he did not sin. In other words, Job didn't sin, right?
Right. Right.
Why is it saying that? Because and I love what Lyric said a little bit ago, right? There's no reason, there's no problem when you don't understand and you have a question based on your understanding. There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. This guy, think about it, and you, like you said, the type of grieving that we're talking about. He lost all he had. He
Right.
lost family,
Right.
children, gone,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now his body is going through pain because of the boils and all of this other stuff, right? And now you heap on top of that his friends coming and telling him about how much evil he's done and that's hidden up in his life and everything else. And he knows that is a false accusation, and that is a false narrative, false premise. You can name up all of the false on top of all of these things. And even in all of that, not only does he defend God and his character to those people, he still, even in all of that grief and everything else, the question for him is still what's going on and the why. It's not a problem with that. I agree that what you said, his relationship with God is strong enough that, wherever God is going to move him and put him and everything else, that's going to happen.
Here's here,
He understands that, but
but
still, the mental part when you look at the readings and what he's saying and
right.
everything else, yeah, he like he said, he knows who his redeemer is,
Here's the
and
conflict.
and it's personal.
Here's the conflict in that. The conflict in that is when he first said, "God giveth and God taketh away."
Correct.
That's his answer.
Yes.
So if
And
in his mind,
can I s- can I say something here too? Also in this portion of the read, there this read is about Job, yes, and this read here is about the understanding that um that Job is going, that Job is going to get from God. He's getting a couple of answers from him, and God is also opening his eyes to a couple of things. And one thing that we miss in these chapters here is we miss on the message that these chapters are given out um, about Job's friends and what Job's friends are and what Job's friends are doing to assist in Job's pain. Let me explain what I'm saying. We see these three quote unquote wise men come in and we see them talking to him, and we see, like I said, Job having a discourse with them and having a discourse with God. So these things are contemporaneously going on because Job is not stopping his prayer completely to speak with them. He's having two conversations, at the same time, because he's still talking to, he knows that I'm gonna get the majority of what I need from God, because what his friends are doing, and this is the best way I could break it down, and then I'll shut up and let you guys have it. What his friends have done is they have come in and they have begun prescribing a solution. They've begun prescribing. So they immediately jump in and they immediately start saying, here's your prescription. This is what you should be. This is what you should be doing. This is what you should have done before you even got to this point. But now that you're here, this is what you need to do now to come out of this. Isn't it funny that when you're going through, that when you're in pain, that when you're in the midst of your suffering, that everybody is an expert on what you're going through, because that now his three friends are experts about a relationship that he built with God. And so now God is taking him through something extremely profound, extremely spiritual. And they're telling him things that he should do, as if he hasn't already done those things, as if he's not currently or has been in conversation with God. Here they jump in and sarcastically tell him what he should be doing. And this shows me here that even us as people, we have a tendency to do that. If somebody is really, really going through, we jump right in there and give them and hand them a prescription that we wouldn't want anybody to hand us in the midst of our pain. We begin immediately prescribing. We got all the prescriptions for them. This is what you ought to be doing. This is where your answer, this is where your healing is going to come from. Because everybody has turned into an expert. And his friends never one time sat with him in silence and prayer. We don't see that. We don't do that. If somebody comes to us crying, we immediately want to dry their tears by begin telling them what they should be doing. So this portion of scripture, yes, like I said, it's about Job. But don't miss what's happening with these friends, because God is showing us a lot in this book. And we get stuck on Job's why and Job's conflict, and it's deeper than that. I'll be quiet.
Absolutely. It talks about, and I'm guilty of this because, as man, what we always want to do is fix. We always want to fix. We don't want to take the time to be compassionate and patient when people are brought to a lower state. So this book here is a mirror towards a lot of things that we do as man. And when I say man, meaning women also, but what we do as man when it comes to those that are suffering. Because automatically, the way we're taught is that if someone is suffering, they did something wrong, they did something bad. As we see these three guys, and including his wife, is pushing on him. And it even gets to the point where, okay, well, I won't jump, but you're absolutely right. Absolutely.
His friends were, I wish that I felt better. His friends did not want to, it wasn't that they was hurting that they were seeing their friend go through. I think the initial shock probably was, oh my goodness. I want to say that might have been their initial shock. But stay in the scripture. You can see exactly who his friends were and what his friends was doing. And again, this is because they had a worldly morality, a worldly uh, uh, um, thought, a worldly process of what righteousness and what justice looked like. And they had that legalistic way of thinking. That's why I gave you guys the historicity of the book of Job. And I kept on and I wanted you to have that understanding of where the book of Job chronologically falls in the Bible, because again, you remember, this is happening before Moses. This is happening before Abraham. So before Abraham, um yes, God did absolutely say that Job was righteous, and he is still righteous. Even through his pain and through his suffering, God still declares him as righteous because of his faith and his belief in God. Because righteousness isn't declared, as I stated, uh, in other reads, righteousness isn't declared by your actions, by your performance. You can't perform for God to be righteousness. I mean, to be righteous. Faith declared Abraham righteous. Therefore, God declared Abraham righteous. Because Job was going on. No, his friends did not see him the way God saw him. His friends saw him as blessed. His friend saw him as blessed, and they did honor him all the way up until this point. They viewed him as righteous, and they honored him all the way up until this point. And that's why God presented him before Satan. And it's funny how Satan stuck his own foot in his mouth, because he's like, take everything away from him and he'll curse you. Take the hedge away from him. But God already knew who he was. That's why God brought the attention of Job to Satan. I know that if I peel back the flesh from his bones, he's still going to stand. He's still going to love me. He's still going to honor and represent me. Because all that I have given him, he knows that it doesn't account for what he has with me. His friends didn't view him like that. Because if they did, they wouldn't have begun prescribing to him what he ought to do to make the sun shine back in his life. You need the sun to shine back on you because you have done something wrong. They didn't understand him at all the way God understood him, and the scriptures show us that. Because like I said, when does it show? Where has it shown up until this point that his friends just got down in their sackcloth and ashes and kneeled and just sat in silence and just listened to his prayers go up, quietly praying beside him? They didn't do it.
No, they didn't. And
They
they
had
didn't understand the character of Job. And in many ways, it's one of those friends in name only. Because if they really know who Job was, these conversations would not have been happening. The things that they would have been saying would not have been happening. At most, it would have been like, "Bro, are you sure nothing happened? Are you sure you haven't done anything?" Even though it's still under that mindset, right? Of
they wouldn't even
of what
ask
you're
that though.
no,
They
no,
wouldn't
no,
even
no, no, no,
ask that.
no, 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 no. What I'm getting at is that I agree. Here's the deal. I agree with what you're saying. But at most, if you understood who Job was, right? Because even we all have those wandering, those questionable moments. I won't say wandering, but questionable moments where they can ask, right? Was you sure that there's nothing? And he said no. Okay, I'm rocking with that. I know you, Job. I know who you are. Right. I know what kind of man you are. I know that you, but they didn't have that. Their stuff was, to your point, was based all upon the belief that if you do something wrong, you know, God's gonna punish you. That's the only reason why you'll go through some bad things. Because God is punishing you of some sin that you don't want to admit. And this is a perfect example. It's a perfect layout of that.
Yeah. Um. It. Yeah. He. Pain. This pain that Job is suffering through is extremely isolating. Like I said, there's so much to unpack here. This is a very, very profound um, book, and in this moment, what Job is dealing with, it's even more troublesome, and it's even more isolating when people that are supposed to know you have pushed you into more isolation, to where you have to um, to where you have to um, feel like you have to defend yourself. But the beauty in Job is he didn't take that stance. He knew that he knew he didn't do nothing wrong. He knew that he wasn't that guy. But in the era in which they was in, was there a question in his mind? A question, I'm sure, arose. But the beauty in it is uh, he knew that God was who he is. Doesn't the Spirit speak of reaping? The Bible does talk about reaping and sowing, and we will we we're definitely gonna get into that. Job, up until this point, there's I feel like I missed something. I missed a step in explaining something when we got when now that we're here in this book. Um, I don't know. I feel like I missed it explaining something, because what Job is going through, and the reason why Job is going through what he's going through is because of something that God is literally uh, trying to show humanity, wanting to show humanity. I think that when we get into these stories, a lot of the time we miss out, and we forget that God is still in the business of restoring the human race. He's still in the business of restoring. And we forget that a lot of the things that's happening, a lot of the things that's going on, they are happening because of him, because he's working. He's working everything that's going on and happening in the earth. He's working it through the hands and the feet of man. He's working it through them. And so I don't know. I think that maybe I have not explained something here.
Well,
Um,
I would say this: keep in mind that the text is descriptive and not prescriptive. And I think this is what to what the question that Anae was asking. Um, that's why they believe exactly what I would say, that's why they believed exactly what they believed, because they thought they could, like Lyric said earlier, they thought they could please God by actions, right? That their actions accounted for righteousness, right? It's the same, it's no different than the person who believes that they're right with God because they go to church every Sunday, right? So they believe that they're right with God, or that they read their Bible, you know, 3 times a day. That makes me right with God, right? It's not about a action that was done, and that's what they believed. They believed that Job sinned and he's going through something, and because and the thing, all of the bad, and not here's the deal: it's not just because he sinned that he's going through this; is that he did some wicked major sin that caused all of this calamity to fall on him. And that goes back to lyrics portion of them not understanding God, not understanding the character of God, like Job did, right? When you have that, when you believe that God is waiting to strike you down, as they say nowadays, with a bolt of lightning, the minute you screw up and that he's ready to cast judgment on you, the minute you slip and fall, then guess what? That's the mentality of what of what's going on in that mindset,
And
right?
let me add to what you just said. To what you just said, which was so good. They didn't know the relationship that Job had with God. So, what God, again, we've been taught to bring forth the creatures instead of looking at the creator. God is always showing us a reflection of man. He's always showing us a reflection of his love, his faith, his trust, his patience, his long suffering. He's always showing us a glimpse. So when we read Esther, right, what he did with that was he put us in the audience and let us watch things in real time. Now he's taking us again back behind the curtain. And what he's showing us in man is this man has a relationship with me, right? It's like, I'll give you an example. It's like if you have two rappers rapping and they're on stage battling. Okay. Now I'll give you two. Let's say Rakim and LL Cool J are battling. Now there's going to be two battles going on at the same time. The battle that these two are going to be having is going to be lyrical. And we all know that LL Cool J can't touch Rakim lyrically. But then there's another battle that the world is watching, and that's on stage. Who has a better stage performance, which is going to be LL Cool J. So what the Lord is showing us, and I'm correlating that in the aspect of, the Lord is showing that, one, Job knows the relationship, just like you just said, and he knows the relationship he has with me. He knows that. And two, this is the reaction that man has. Instead of being patient, instead of being in the spirit, we jump to conclusions to think that something is wrong, something is bad. So we go into accusing, we go into trying to fix. However, now when Job, he jumps between the relationships of Job and the relationships of man, one towards another and one towards God. So now these men, their relationship with God is waning. It's waning. Of course it is, because of the way they're talking to Job. And here it is, Job is the man that's going through what he's going through, not these three guys on the outside. Job is on the inside, and Job is saying, nah, you dudes is wrong. Now, don't get it twisted. Yeah, I got all these things happening to me. I'm still man. I'm still going to grieve. And I'll bring that up. Christ grieved. And Christ is God. Let me say it again. Christ grieved. Christ grieved the same way Job grieved. In the same in like manner. I'm not gonna say the same, but in like manner. And he's God. So what does that then say? What does that then say? As man, we have an attribute of this flesh that's connected to us. And we're gonna speak on it. But a spiritual man is gonna understand the difference between when the flesh is talking and when the spirit is talking. And we see this very explicitly in Job.
That is correct. Mm.
So that's the reason. That's the reasoning on. Excuse me.
That's all right. Thought we lost you for a second.
Huh?
Thought we lost you for a second. Kind of
Oh,
a fade to black moment. Then it's like
that.
you pop back up.
Oh, and that's the reasoning behind it, because it's always gonna be. It's like when people ask me a question. It's like when Joseph asked the question, if I was Jesus and I had the power of Jesus, would I have died for humanity? And I said, do you want the spiritual answer or the carnal answer? What answer you want? The spiritual answer is, the Lord wants us to strive for that. The carnal answer is, hell no. I ain't dying for y'all. If I got that power that Christ got, I'm killing everybody. Period. It took a certain type of man to do what Christ did. No other man can do that, to have the power that he had and the power that he wields and still sacrifice his life for humanity. That's a different breed of dude. And I'm not going to lie to myself and say, yeah, I would do that. No, I wouldn't. Not knowing that I have the power with the thought to get rid of my enemies. No, they're getting rid of. But he went through the pain, the suffering, the hurt, the malice, the strife, the crucifixion, the stabbing. Went through all these things. The grief. But he never waned, never wavered, never wavered. So that's why I continue to make that comparison, that even though Job doesn't know the totality of what's going on, he doesn't have that view that God has, right? In Jeremiah 29:11, he doesn't have that view, but he's tapped in. Believe me, God ain't into losing. He ain't into losing bets. He's not going to bring out one dude out of millions of people on this planet and say, yo, look at him. And then say, yeah, do what you want. Just don't take his life. Yeah, don't worry about it. Go ahead. No matter what you do, he ain't going to move. Doesn't mean that as man, he's not going to talk about the pain he's going through. Doesn't mean as man, he's not going to talk about him losing his children, him losing his wealth, him losing his land. Doesn't mean that he's not going to talk about that. Yeah, he's going to have a portion of his grief where he talks about that, because he's man. He's in flesh. But let's understand, he ain't going to waver on me. He may not know where this is going, but the one thing that him and I have is trust. I have his trust. He is in me as I am in him. And that's the difference between the three and the one. That's the difference. They don't have that trust. They don't have that understanding. But it also goes into us as men and women when we try to counsel somebody, when we're trying to help somebody. Are we being patient enough to stay in their sorrow? Are we praying for them? Are we just still? We all suffer from that. We all can raise our hand to that. That we don't. And this is also, something that we three always speak about, and all of us in the village. Be mindful of the people that you put around you. Because it gets to a point, and I don't want to jump, but you're going to see tomorrow, it gets crazy. It gets crazy. But be mindful of the people that you put around you, because if Job wasn't tapped in and having that relationship with God, these cats would have swayed him. Because he's at a point where he's broken. He's at a point where he's hurt. But here's the difference between him and everyone else. He never wavered. Never, because he understood that trust. He understood God. And that's the point that I think all of us agree on. And that's the point that Lyric is honing in on. That as man, we're going to talk about our hurt. As man, we're going to talk about being angered. We're angered. I'm angry. Because I talk about my mom, and because I talk about my father and my son, and I'm angry when I talk about it. But in my spirit, I understand. Just that flesh is crazy. That flesh is crazy. But you understand. My trust in him doesn't waver. But you're going to have other people. But he did this, he did that. Dogs. When Job said he giveth and he taketh, that should set the tone. He gives and he takes. Everything belongs to him. So he gave it to me, he decided to take it back. It is what it is. Hell, my life belongs to him. It ain't mine. So he can take it whenever he chooses. How much more my children. We are just stewards. So we are. We are in charge of his possession, even ourselves. We belong to him. All belongs to him, period. So that's the mind frame. See, when you get caught up into man's nonsense and you say, well, this is mine. What? What's yours? There's nothing on this earth that belongs to you. Everything belongs to him, period. You belong to him. How much more your car? How much more your child? How much more your wife? Your wife submits to you only because you submit to him. Your wife submits to you only because of who you represent, which is God, Christ. So he's in all. There's nothing that he's not in. There's nothing that he's not in. So yes, as man, we're going to be angry. As man, we're going to tap into that flesh. As man, yeah. However, when it comes to Job, Job was a different breed. And there's certain cats and certain women that we read the scriptures that are just different breeds of people. They just were. They just were. And God boasts about just a few, not that many. And Job was that dude. Understand that. Job was that dude. Understand the relationship that Job had to have with the Father. We're talking about the liar of liars, the first murderer, the deceiver, the accuser. The accuser. Him. The Lord brought Job to his attention. So you check him out. Check him out. So that's the point. What kind of relationship did he have? What kind of trust did he have in the Most High? What kind of trust did the Lord have in him? Look at that. Because the Lord tells you, you'll put on the whole armor so that you are able to withstand the wiles of the devil. The devil's been doing this for a long time, playing these games. He's been doing it for a long time. He's been doing it for a long time. So in saying this, the Lord brought him out, a mortal, to a celestial, a terrestrial to a celestial. Look at that dude right there. And no matter what you do, you are not going to break him. If we don't understand the relationship that this man had with the Lord, you know, just before you even get to the point where you're talking about him being tempted, before you even get to that point, before you even talk about that, let's not even get to that point yet. Let's just speak on the point that the Lord said, look at him. What kind of relationship did these two have? The relationship, or the type of relationship we should all strive for. Because again, we have to compartmentalize the difference of when man is talking, going through their grief, and when man taps into the spirit. Job never wavered. But he grieved. He went through grief. Absolutely. Christ went through grief. Never wavered. Christ is God. How much more? So, you know, this book is a revealing of so many different characteristics of man, and so many different things that we should, you know, when you take this book apart, it's on a different level, man. It is. From the relationship that Job had with God before Satan came up on the scene and God pointed Job out to him. What kind of relationship did they have? Then you see the relationship with these men and Job. So what kind of relationship did these men have with God so that they would just say, curse God and die? These are what they were saying. Curse God and die. I think it was his wife that said that. And this man is the one going through it. No one comforting him. That's crazy. No one comforting him. But everyone is saying what Anthony said. Duke, you must have did something, son. I don't know what you did, but it's crazy. But if you truly had a relationship with God, you would understand that suffering doesn't only come through punishment. It just doesn't. Joseph suffered. He didn't do anything. But it was a building of the character. It was a building of his spirit, a building of lessons, a building to where he needed to be. And he had trust in the Lord. Jeremiah 29:11. He had trust in the Lord that this route that the Lord is taking him on is going to lead him someplace. Did he have grief in the flesh? Absolutely. Did he waver? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, yeah, his friends did sit with him for several days. Silent. That's the key thing, Annette. Silent.
They should have
Some,
kept doing it.
they sat silent, and Lyric just said it. They didn't pray with him. They didn't pray for him. They sat silent as he is. See, this is the purpose of setting up people around you. Because when you're at a point where you're broken, doesn't mean that your faith is wavered. It just means that you're grieving. You're in your flesh. You feel it. Remember, Christ sweat blood. Sweat blood. And what did the Lord do? Sent angels to minister unto him. Duke, you're the only one that can do this. Can't no one else do it? You're the only one. So when you have fallen, the people that you set around you are the ones that are supposed to cover you, right? When I'm fallen, who's supposed to cover me? My wife. When she's fallen, who's supposed to cover her? Your husband. When both of you are fallen, you would hope that your family, your friends, the people around you will cover you in prayer, cover you. These dudes didn't cover him. They sat with him. Their company was there. They didn't pray. They didn't minister. They didn't say, let us involve the Lord. They didn't do that at all. They should have prayed. Let's get the Lord involved. Let's sit down and understand why this is going on. Or maybe we're not meant to know. Maybe, you're supposed to go through what you're going through to get you to where you need to be. Suffering doesn't always come through punishment. We have to know the difference. And a spiritual man, a spiritual woman is going to know. Because they're going to be tapped in. They're not going to be too quick to jump and judge and condemn and say, you did something. Now, we know Job didn't do nothing because the Lord said he was a perfect and upright man. Who else has he said that about in the Bible? None unlike him. Who else has he said that about? Has he said that about anybody else, Ed?
No.
No. A perfect and upright man. So Job's relationship was on a different level. And if these cats were that close to Job, they would have knew that. They would have knew that. How close to Job were they? Now those questions start to get raised. Right? Because if you hang out with 11 broke people, sooner or later you become a 12th. You take on the attributes of the people you are around. So obviously they didn't take on the attributes of Job, and definitely Job didn't take on the attributes of them. Job understood. So that there's so many different ways, to look at this book. and understand that this book is about that you don't always have to do something wrong to suffer. The Lord will shape you through it. And that you're not wrong when you go through your grief in the flesh. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. But you have to understand that the Lord shapes us through suffering. You have to understand that. That's part of it. Lord told you that. Told you the world hated me, so it's going to hate you. And you ain't no greater than your master. So if it hated me, it's going to hate you. So be prepared. Prepare your soul for much, tribulation and temptation. Prepare yourself. And that, and the Lord tells you, stir your heart aright. Run to me. Run to Him. Lord tells you, run to me. When you're going through your pain, run to me. Don't try to fight. Come to me. I'm the one that controls it all. So why are you trying to figure it out? I got it figured out. But pride of man, pride of a child, right? The child thinks that they know until they don't know. Now here's the difference. How long is it going to take for you to figure out that you don't know? That's the question. How quick are you going to run back to your father? How quick are we going to run back to our father? How quick are we going to sit there and say, Lord, okay, we can't do it. We submit. And that's where it starts. It starts with you submitting to God first, period. In all. That's all I got, Big Ant. That's all I got.
And that was good. I'm sorry. You seeing Bolo, so that was good.
Oh, man.
Uh,
I'll let you lead the prayer, big bro.
all right, man. Father God, we just thank you for this day and allowing us to come together to read your word and to learn of you. And we just thank you for everyone who was able to make it this morning. We ask that you would just continue to be with us and keep us this morning as we go about our day. And we ask that you would just continue to allow us to uh, be salt and light so that we might draw men to you. We ask that you would just continue to bless us and keep us during this time. Lord, we pray for those who are sick, pray for their recovery, and we ask that you would just be with them and their families, Lord, during this time, Lord, and just put your healing hands around them. We just thank you for all of the things that you've done for us. In your son, Jesus' name, amen.
Father, thank you for allowing us to come together. Thank you for allowing us to wake. Thank you for allowing us to feel your presence and to hear your voice. We thank you. We thank you for keeping all those of your children safe, giving them travel mercy, and all those that are sick. We ask, Lord God, that you encamp your angels around them and heal them, please. Lord God, uh, we ask that that we open up our mind, body, souls, and spirits, that we meditate in you and that you put your word in us. Not after man, not after religion, not after tradition, not after movies, but after you, after your truth. We ask that when we go back and open the book and read it, that you speak unto us, that you quiet our spirits so that we're able to hear your voice. Thank you for allowing us to come together. Thank you for the village. Thank you. In Jesus' name, pray. Last words, big boy.
Well, bro, again, it's great to be back. Uh, Long time coming. Feel like I just came off some world tour or something. But yeah, it's all great, man. And hey, I'm glad for the reading this morning. Seeing you, Lyric again, and being able to chop it up at least on a brief set. So you know, just everyone, as Scripture says, whatever you do in word or deed, do all to the glory of Christ. So everyone have fun and have a great day today.
All right, guys, we are starting to learn, and we're starting to go into some of these books, and we're starting to see the attributes. And I don't want to jack up the questions that lyric says, right? What is it that you're revealing to us about you? What are you revealing to us about ourselves? And what are you revealing to us about your people? We are starting to see that there are certain things that the Lord is revealing to us about himself, right? And he is using key characters to show as an example, to show you the relationship, to show you what's happening in the background. Right? He's showing you behind the magic trick, showing you all these different things. So let's take our time to understand and take our time to read, take our time to meditate. Right? This is not about who knows the most. It's not about that. It's never been about that. What it's about is meditating, having a contrite and broken heart, and loving the Father and submitting to him and serving him. That's what it's always been about, and that's what it will always be about. So guys, take 10 to 15 minutes to be in awe of what the Father's creating for you. And if you haven't accepted Christ your Lord and Savior, please do. We learn from our past, we plan for our future, but we live in the present because it is a gift. It's not something that needs to be given. A gift doesn't have to be given to you, but he chooses to give it to you every day. Please don't waste it. Don't squander it. Use it wisely. Right? And for those of you that suffer from mental illness, depression, addiction, those of you that just think that you are alone, you are not. There's a number that's scrolling on the bottom or in the description. Call that number. Call the numbers. If you just want to talk to Bolo, call me. Right? So if you guys need Bibles, email me and we'll get you Bibles free. Okay, guys? Time is near. So let's get it together. With that being said, Big Bro, I love you. Lyric, I love you. Village, I love you. See you guys tomorrow morning, Lord willing. Have a blessed day, guys.
Love you too, man. Have a great one.